Hello everyone, welcome to 90 Day News Hub. Watch the full video for the latest shocking updates. Didn't pack in a rush. She didn't yell. She didn't slam a door. Jenny Slatten just left. 1 minute, the cameras were following her through a sleepy deli market. The next, her apartment was half empty. Her shawl still draped over the chair like she'd be back for breakfast, and Sumit was walking into a home that no longer felt like home. She left a note, the kind that doesn't need more than one read, folded, placed carefully on the kitchen counter next to a framed photo of them from better days. 5 words stared back at him. I did my best. Goodbye. This wasn't a TLC plot twist. This wasn't a scene production teased in a mid-season trailer. No heads up. No big sit down. Jenny wasn't playing by the reality TV game anymore. She walked off set and disappeared into the real world. And it left even the crew speechless. Hey everyone, I'm Alina and this is Reality Star Scoop US. Subscribe if you're tired of love stories that start like fairy tales but finish like a 6-part crime doc. And tell me, would you stay in a relationship where you were waiting endlessly for someone else's family to see you as human? Because Jenny did. For 10 years, she sacrificed her entire life in California to be with Sumit in India. She moved across continents, said goodbye to friends, missed major family milestones, sold off her furniture and dreams, all for a future that never moved past maybe. And the wild part, she didn't even get to keep her dignity intact. She had to fight for that, too. Scene by scene. When 90 Day Fiancé introduced us to Jenny and Sumit, we were watching an all-in-love story. 2 people flipping off society, judgment, age differences, everything. Jenny was the textbook example of I'll prove everybody wrong. But what happened when love stopped being the issue? Because this wasn't about cheating or lying anymore. This was something nobody likes to talk about. Emotional exhaustion. You don't see it all at once. You catch it in the way she stopped correcting Sumit when he interrupted her. In the polite, tight smile she kept forcing during awkward dinners. In the way she'd defend their love to a camera, but looked down when no one was watching. There's a different kind of burnout when you've emotionally invested everything into one person and still don't feel like you belong in their life. Jenny wasn't just out of patience. She was out of pieces to pick up. And while TLC's camera crew saw some of the tears, insiders say even they didn't catch the full breakdown. Jenny had allegedly been making quiet calls to California weeks before the walkout. Not to cry or vent, but to ask buried questions like how much it would cost to ship things back, like who could help her move, like where she could stay. When you love someone that deeply, you don't plan your exit unless your soul already feels evicted. She didn't leave in anger. She left in silence. And that's when you should worry. On the surface, it looked like a quiet day. Nothing dramatic happened between Jenny and Sumit the morning it all went down. She made her usual tea, tidied the kitchen, even joked with a neighbor outside, according to one source. But when Sumit left for the gym, she changed everything. She took her bag, a few framed pictures, and a suitcase she had quietly prepped 2 nights earlier. That kind of calm doesn't come overnight. That's the kind of quiet you earn after months of begging yourself to give it one more week. When Sumit walked in late that night, the vibe was off before he even opened the door fully. One light on, her perfume gone, her slippers missing. The first thing he noticed was the unnatural quiet. Then he saw it, the note. No dramatic explanation, no references to his parents, just 5 words. He called out her name once, then again with a shaking voice. He walked through the rooms like someone hit rewind on his memories. That gut instinct you get when you're praying you're wrong, but already know you're not. He felt every second of it. The kitchen still smelled like the tea she used to make. A cleaner had come that morning who said she wasn't there, but didn't think much of it. Jenny had even made the bed. Not something women usually do when they're running away from a life. This was a closure crafted with eerie calm. But don't get it twisted. This wasn't helplessness. This was control. And that control, it's what made it cut 10 times deeper than any screaming match could have. There's one dinner TLC never planned to air. Quiet lighting, too few smiles, and a table set with more tension than food. It wasn't a scene. It was a slow-motion collapse recorded by accident. Multiple crew insiders say it started like any typical meet-up. Sumit's family, Jenny politely trying to blend in, and enough forced civility to pretend things were healing. But something changed that night. Mid-meal, something shifted. Something snapped. The camera crew was only half rolling, expecting canned lines. No one saw the emotional bomb coming, not even Jenny. According to 3 insiders, it was Sumit's mother, his stoic, stone-faced mother, who did the honors. She didn't yell. That would have been easier to push back against. Instead, she tilted her head, made eye contact with Jenny across the table, and in the clearest Hindi possible told her, "You will never truly belong here. Not never get used to it. Not we're still adjusting. Never." Sumit froze. The table fell silent. And Jenny didn't flinch. She didn't argue. She didn't cry. She didn't even blink. She looked down, fork in hand, stared at her lap. One source watching the scene said it felt less like rejection and more like the final confirmation of what she'd feared for years. You know that weird moment when someone says out loud what you've been trying to unhear in your own head? That's what it looked like. She sat through the whole dinner with that same half-nod glued to her face. Not in agreement, not in surrender, more like resignation. Like someone mentally checking out of a hotel room they rented for 10 years. Sumit tried to recover, changed the subject twice, even smiled, but Jenny's signals had gone silent. TLC didn't expect it. They weren't even sure whether to keep filming. One mic-up crew member whispered to another, "She hasn't said a full sentence in 15 minutes. Everyone talks about breaking points like they're explosions. But that's not how real emotional damage always happens. Half the time it's quiet, clinical, like watching a light dim second by second until it's too dark to see clearly." That dinner didn't shout trauma. It whispered it. This wasn't shock. This was her shutting off before permanently checking out. By the time filming wrapped that night, nobody had the guts to bring it up. Jenny hugged the producers with her usual polite tone. She said, "Thank you." She waved to the driver, but she never mentioned what was said at the table. Not once. And if you watch the raw footage, her smile was timed with precision. The same way you'd fold a napkin after a service you're glad is over. Sources says Sumit tried to bring it up later casually. "My mom didn't mean it like that." Jenny nodded. Said she understood. No raised voices, no accusations, but also no real warmth. The problem was no longer his parents. The problem was the echo that lived in her head even after they left. And that echo, it sat next to her for weeks. At breakfast, at temple visits, on walks through their market, and it spoke louder than Suma ever did. Before Jenny emptied the apartment, before the note on the kitchen counter, and way before that airport connection to Los Angeles, she made a quiet call back home. No shouting. No drama. No slammed doors. Jenny Slatten didn't leave like someone running away. She left like someone who had already made peace with losing everything. One moment the cameras were following her through a quiet neighborhood market. The next moment her apartment felt hollow, like the air itself had packed up and gone with her. Her shawl was still hanging on the chair. The cup she used every morning was still beside the sink. It looked like she would be back in 10 minutes. But she wasn't. Sumit walked into the apartment that night expecting routine. Instead, he walked into absence. Not chaos. Absence. The kind that presses against your chest before your brain catches up. The silence wasn't empty. It was heavy. Something had changed, and his body knew it before his eyes did. On the kitchen counter sat a folded piece of paper. Neat. Intentional. not rushed. 5 words written with calm precision. I did my best. Goodbye. No blame. No explanation. No accusations. Just finality. This wasn't a TLC twist. This wasn't a teaser moment for ratings. This was a woman stepping out of a life she had waited a decade to be welcomed into. And that's the part that hurt the most. Jenny didn't leave angry. She left finished. Hey everyone, welcome back to Reality Star Scoop Us. Subscribe if you're done watching love stories that start like fairy tales and end like emotional endurance tests. Because today, we're talking about the quietest breakup in 90-Day Fiancé history. Not the loudest. Not the messiest. The quietest. And those are always the ones that mean the most. To understand why Jenny left the way she did, you have to understand how long she stayed when she shouldn't have. 10 years. 10 years of waiting to be accepted. 10 years of defending a love that constantly asked her to prove itself. 10 years of explaining herself to a family that never truly opened the door. When we first met Jenny and Sumit, their story looked bold. Rebellious. Romantic. Age gap. Who cares? Cultural judgment. Irrelevant. They were going to prove everyone wrong. Jenny uprooted her entire life in California for this love. She sold furniture. She left friends. She missed family milestones. She crossed continents with faith instead of guarantees. But love doesn't die all at once. It erodes. Slowly. Quietly. Especially when you're the only one constantly adapting. This wasn't about cheating anymore. It wasn't about lies. It was about emotional exhaustion. The kind you don't notice until your reactions start disappearing. Jenny stopped correcting Sumit mid-sentence. She stopped pushing back at family dinners. She smiled when she should have spoken. She defended their relationship to cameras, then looked down when no one was watching. There's a special kind of burnout that happens when you invest everything and still feel like a guest in your own home. According to insiders, Jenny had been making quiet calls weeks before she left. Not emotional calls. Practical ones. How much would shipping cost? Where could she stay? What paperwork did she need? You don't plan exits like that unless your heart has already moved out. The day she left looked normal. Too normal. She made tea. She cleaned the kitchen. She spoke kindly to a neighbor. When Sumit left for the gym, she didn't cry. She didn't panic. She took the suitcase she had quietly prepared days earlier and walked out. When someone leaves like that, it means the decision was made long before the door closed. That night, Sumit knew something was wrong before he even stepped fully inside. One light left on. Her perfume gone. Her slippers missing. He called her name once. Then again. Each time softer. Each time more uncertain. He walked room to room, replaying memories like a broken rewind button. The apartment still smelled like the tea she used to make. She had even made the bed. Not something people do when they're running from chaos. This wasn't escape. This was closure. And here's what people miss. This wasn't weakness. This was control. Quiet control always hurts more than yelling ever could. There was one dinner TLC never planned to turn into a turning point. Low lighting. Forced smiles. A table set with tension instead of food. Sumit's family. Jenny trying, as always, to blend in. Everyone pretending healing was happening. Then it happened. No yelling. No insults. Sumit's mother looked directly at Jenny and said, calmly, clearly, "You will never truly belong here. Not maybe. Not someday. Never." The room froze. Sumit didn't move. Jenny didn't react. No tears. No argument. No shock. She looked down at her plate and nodded slightly. Not in agreement. Not in surrender. In confirmation, one insider said it felt like watching someone hear a truth they'd been trying not to believe for years. Jenny finished the dinner politely, hugged everyone goodbye, thanked the producers, smiled at the driver, never mentioned the comment once, but something in her shut off that night. After that, her energy changed. She was present, but absent, affectionate, but distant. She didn't fight anymore because there was nothing left to fight for. Sumit tried to downplay it later. My mom didn't mean it like that. Jenny nodded, said she understood. And that was the problem. Because once understanding replaces hope, the ending is already written. Before the note, before the empty apartment, before the flight back to Los Angeles, Jenny made one last quiet call home. And that call changed everything. That call wasn't emotional. Jenny didn't cry. She didn't explain everything. She simply asked questions that only make sense when a decision is already final. What flights were cheapest? How long could she stay? Whether her storage unit was still active. When her daughter asked, "Are you coming back for good?" Jenny answered without hesitation. Yes. Not someday. Not maybe. Yes. After that moment, everything she did was intentional. She didn't rush. She didn't panic. She sorted through her life like someone choosing what memories deserved to survive. Clothes were folded neatly. Papers organized. Photos selected carefully. She packed light, not because she had little, but because she was done carrying the weight of a life that never fully accepted her. Crew members later said something unsettling. Jenny left behind things she loved. Not out of anger, out of acceptance. The shawl, the mugs, the spices she had learned to cook with. She wasn't erasing the past. She was closing it gently. Sumit, on the other hand, unraveled after it was too late. Sources say he replayed every recent moment, searching for the warning sign he missed. The fight that never happened. The argument that never came. The silence he misunderstood as peace. One producer recalled him saying, "If she had screamed, I could have fixed it." That sentence says everything. Because you can't fix silence once it settles in. Silence means the grieving already happened. This wasn't just a breakup. It was the collapse of a decade-long hope. Jenny didn't leave because she stopped loving Sumit. She left because loving him required her to keep shrinking. And eventually, there was nothing left to shrink. This is the part TLC never really shows. Not the fights, not the tears, but the slow erosion of identity. Jenny wasn't fighting Sumit's parents anymore. She was fighting the echo in her own head. The voice that whispered, "You don't belong here." The same voice that followed her through markets, temples, and quiet mornings. She tried to silence it. She tried to outlast it. But when someone says your deepest fear out loud, it changes you. Sumit's mother didn't just reject her. She confirmed what Jenny had been carrying alone for years. And once confirmation replaces doubt, there's nothing left to debate. After that dinner, Jenny went through the motions. She smiled on cue. She hugged politely. She thanked people. But insiders say her eyes had changed. The warmth was gone. Not replaced with anger. Replaced with clarity. She didn't announce her departure because she wasn't asking permission. She didn't warn anyone because she wasn't negotiating. This wasn't abandonment. This was self-preservation. When Sumit walked into that apartment and found the note, it shattered him not because she left, but because she left peacefully. No chaos means no reopening the conversation. No closure meetings. No second chances. Just an ending. And here's what makes this story hit harder than most reality TV breakups. Jenny didn't lose herself because she was weak. She lost herself because she was loyal. Loyal beyond reason. Loyal beyond fairness. loyal to a version of love that kept promising a future that never arrived. 10 years is a long time to wait to be chosen fully. 10 years is a long time to live in someone else's world without ever being made permanent. When Jenny boarded that flight back to California, there were no cameras waiting, no social media posts, no goodbye interviews. Just a woman reclaiming a life she paused for someone else's comfort. Sources close to her say the first night back, she slept through the night without anxiety for the first time in years. No guilt, no tension, no waiting for approval. That's not running away. That's healing. And the question this story leaves behind isn't about Jenny or Sumit, it's about everyone watching. How long do you stay when love costs you your sense of home? How long do you wait for acceptance before realizing you've already given enough? Jenny Slatten didn't walk away from love. She walked back to herself. And sometimes, that's the bravest ending of all. After Jenny returned to California,